Hello everybody, this is my session. It's a new session, so I haven't presented this before. So in true Agile style, it's kind of minimum viable product in that I'm really excited about this talk. I'm hoping that it's bringing together some of the thinking that I've had over the last few years and very much more about kind of being Agile than doing Agile. So I think we will do that. We just said we'll leave it open unless there's noisy people. I'm very much more about kind of being Agile rather than doing Agile, the kind of practical tools and things. I do work with various teams. So to introduce myself, my name is Belinda Waldock. I live down in Cornwall, so I've come up from sunny Cornwall to sunny London, which is fabulous. Has actually, quick show of hands, has anybody been to Agile on the Beach before? Yay, you've got one person. Anybody coming this year? Yay, 2! Excellent, we are growing, as you see. So this is actually the photo from last year. It's photographer in the room. You will appreciate the mammoth task that it takes to draw people away from beer and food and get them to pose for a photograph. But this is us all on the beach last year. I'm one of the co-organisers for that. I also run Software Cornwall, which is a not-for-profit, so Agile on the Beach is not-for-profit. Software Cornwall is a not-for-profit community. So I call it the continuous Agile on the Beach. It's for the people that live and work in tech down there, and we work a lot on education and helping to grow the sector. And then my other hat is being Agile, which is where I go out and I train and I coach teams, particularly non-technical teams, in using Agile. So I wanted to talk about kind of Agile beyond code today at quite a high level, and hopefully it'll get you thinking about how you use Agile within your organisations, within your teams as individuals, and get you thinking about how you can do that more broadly and share it beyond just the development. Again, quick show of hands, how many of you are developers? So a couple of developers, kind of product owners, team leaders, owner directors. Who have I? Anybody else? Project managers, yeah. Teachers is another one I quite often get. Students. So yeah, really nice mix of people in the room, which is good because I've written the talk for a mix of people, so that's great. Two years ago now, I wrote a book, Being Agile in Business, and that book is all about writing Agile, a very kind of simple introduction to Agile for people that aren't in tech, they don't understand the jargon, so I called it a bit of a translation. And the idea was that I was working with a lot of non-technical teams, and the work that I'd done with technical teams, I was seeing that it was completely applicable to other teams as well. So that's kind of where the book came from. And really, it kind of goes from beyond the code. So Agile within software development is amazing. It's awesome. It's really transformed the way that we develop products, the way that we actually write the code as such. Yeah. So the way we write code, the way we work together to create that code, to create software. But beyond that, actually, I think Agile does a lot more than that. And we've heard about this through some of the sessions today. So as well as software, Agile is a great tool for teams. It's a great tool for practices. It's a great tool for products. And actually, it's a great, and I should stop saying tool because I should say methodology and mindset and approach for business as well. And my kind of background, so I have a computer science degree. I graduated in 2000, worked a couple of years kind of in the city, in the southeast. And then I just got pulled back to Cornwall. If you've ever been to Cornwall, Cornwall's one of those places that just keep calling you home, you know. And I really wanted to go back to Cornwall and help businesses in Cornwall to adopt technology, to grow and develop themselves as well. And so I spent quite a few years helping traditional businesses to get into things like e-commerce. And from that, what happened is our kind of tech cluster started to grow. So we have more and more growing businesses where traditionally all they'd be doing is selling to the tourists that come and visit Cornwall, whereas actually suddenly there was this massive global market. So why Agile? Why does Agile work beyond code? And this is kind of one of the favourite slides that I have that I use in most of my courses and training. So do you relate with this? Yeah, you relate with this kind of reality check that actually kind of this to me isn't just code, this is life. You know, it's that kind of, you know, this is where we are, this is where we want to be, you know, and this is how we're going to get there. It's a straight line. This is how we used to kind of approach things. But actually it's not realistic. What's realistic is actually this right hand. You know, actually as we go, things change, and technology has done, you know, has made that far, far more chaotic, because the rate of changing in technology is amazing, and it's really impacting the way that we do business, the way that we live our lives. So we need to be agile throughout, not just, you know, with the code that we're writing, with the software that we're developing. So hopefully you kind of relate to this. It generally gets a lot of smiles, and when I'm working with particularly creative teams, that kind of, you hear almost a sigh of relief in the room, that actually it's this reality check, that we can no longer use traditional project management methods that are incredibly linear. We have to have approaches that allow us to navigate and manage this chaos. So another nice quote I like to use is the Chinese proverb, which is, there's chaos under the heavens and the situation is excellent. So actually change is good. You know, actually change is, you know, if things weren't changing, we'd be worrying within our businesses, within our lives, because we do not want to stagnate. So as well as software, Agile within software teams is incredibly valuable. It puts the writing on the wall. It helps us to see what's going well, what we can do better, what's coming next. It helps us to add structure. This is a board that's it's quite an old board now. It's a 2010 board with a dev team that we were working with. And the yellow cards show technical support. So this kind of before DevOps really was evolving. But one of the things I come across with a lot of development teams is that they're doing other jobs as well. And actually we can't be all things to all people. We have to kind of focus in a bit. So actually, you know, when I started working with development teams and we're seeing this, I was seeing that actually there are other teams with similar problems. So actually getting the writing on the wall is incredibly valuable, like beyond valuable, and it's incredibly simple, but it's so effective. And one of the things I say is, yes, Agile is quite simple in a lot of respects. You know, some of the methods and the principles and the concepts are quite simple concepts, but they're very hard to implement. The difficult bit is the product. So actually by having a simple methodology is really great, because it allows us to develop those complex products. And my dad, I mentioned my dad at the beginning of the necklace, but you know, when I was talking to my dad about Agile and explaining to him, he's kind of an old school builder. And one of his favourite sayings, and he kind of echoed it to me, because he said, you know, well, you know, Billy, this Agile stuff, it just sounds like common sense. And I was like, well, Dad, yeah, it kind of is, I think. But it was just one of those lovely moments where you repeat back to your parent something that they've always said to you. And I said, but don't you always say that common sense isn't common anymore? Yeah, that we've kind of got so caught up in these processes and procedures and systems that actually we've lost sight sometimes of that reality and that common sense. So what happens is, or what I've seen happen in businesses, I work with quite a lot of smaller businesses. I've started working more in the corporate world, but I tend to work with businesses kind of 60, 100 type people. And what I see happen is, so say we'll call, unless you want to pick a colour as development, but if we say that the development team are orange here, and we've got then sales and marketing and finance or operations, these might individual silos within an organisation traditionally. And what Agile does is it starts to bring in this cross-functional teams. But what that does is it doesn't just, I mean, that's great for software development, but once you start mixing people up like this, it actually starts to impact the entire organisation, yeah? So the positive impact that technology and software is having is actually impacting the wider business quite significantly, to the point where we're starting to see these changes. So rather than hierarchical organisations, and and I'm certainly a believer that an organisation has to have some structure. But actually, I've got a chemist, a friend who works in chemistry. She works at Glasgow Smith Kline, and we were talking about this, and she said, well, kind of what you're explaining is a bit like an organic kind of structure. So we kind of come up with this. She was showing me pictures, and I was like, oh, that's it. You know, that to me, it's not a literal representation of an agile organisation. It's more of that kind of, yeah, actually, this is it's an organic thing, it's changing all the time. And actually that impact that Agile's having in technology is filtering through to other aspects of the organisation. So we're seeing that sales and marketing and finance and operations and different areas of the businesses are having to respond not just to the technology changes, but actually to the changes within the technology department as well. So we see that Agile within tech is actually having this much bigger impact on the wider organisation. And how do we manage that? How do we navigate that? And how do we manage something that's constantly changing and fluxing? And that takes a very different mindset. And that's where I think the ideal of being Agile, rather than just doing Agile, is actually really important. So if we think about teams as well, the other side of it is the changing people that we're employing now. Quite a long time ago now, God, it makes me feel like I'm getting old, but it must be 12, 14 years ago, I did a business management model called Forum 21. Has anybody come across it? John McMahon, Irish guy, absolutely awesome. And he identified that there were 4 types of employee within a business. So if you think about kind of back in the day when I kind of took car manufacturing as quite a good example, but you can use other examples as well of how the type of employees that we've got are changing. So, you know, we used to be incredibly labour intensive, yeah, as businesses. The predominant people that we were employing and I'm being very general here, not all businesses, but generalising, we'd have quite a lot of low skilled labour. Kind of before that, you almost have craftsmanship. Part of this talk, I'm almost trying to get a cycle here, but it's not quite there yet. So, but we started with this very labour intensive. We then moved to this kind of material intensive type businesses and labour where, you know, we're really kind of reliant. So our predominant reliance is on materials within the business, raw materials. But then more recently, we've moved to this more machine intensive. So if you think about car manufacturing, you know, we've gone from guys on the factory line kind of putting things together to actually robotics. So the machine, the technology is having a huge impact, which means that people have to be skilled, but also, you know, a lot of the more unskilled jobs have become more redundant. So what we find ourselves with is lots of knowledge workers, yeah? And people like, you know, I class us all as knowledge workers, you know. We are the talent within our organisation. We are the important thing. You've got a group of coders, they are your IP, you know, those people in your organisation, they're not easy to flip and change, yeah? Has anybody read How Google Works? Yeah, no? It's a book, yeah. So this is kind of, I'm throwing this in here. I'm going to do a bit school teachery at you, but I'm going to give you the options. So I have got a slide with some kind of keywords, but what I'd like to do, and it will take a couple of minutes, is to read you an extract from the book. Any objections? Okay. If you all start getting really bored, wave at me, okay, if we go for that. But I've read this out once before in an event I did a couple of weeks ago, and everybody was like, ooh. So I think it'll go really well. And it kind of reads better if I read it from the book rather than just pick out bits. So it's called The Smart Creative. And I'd like to think that you have some synergy in here. And we have got a couple of ladies in the room, and it's in a she context, which I really like. So I'm going to put my clicker down. So it's called The Smart Creative. Bear with me, let me just... sorry, I moved my post-it note. Okay. Who exactly is this smart creative? A smart creative has deep technical knowledge in how to use the tools of her trade and plenty of hands-on experience. In our industry, that means she's most likely a computer scientist, or at least understands the tenets and structures of the systems behind the magic you see on your screens every day. But in other industries, she may be a doctor, a designer, a scientist, a filmmaker, an engineer, a chef, or a mathematician. She is an expert in doing. She doesn't just design concepts, she builds prototypes. She is analytically smart. She is comfortable with data and can use it to make decisions. She also understands its fallacies and is wary of endless analysis. Let the data decide, she believes, but don't let it take over. She is business smart. She sees a direct line from technical expertise to product excellence to business success, and she understands the value of all three. She is competitive smart. Her stock in trade starts with an innovation, but it also includes a lot of work. She is driven to be great, and that doesn't happen 9 till 5. She is user smart, no matter the industry. She understands her product from the user or the consumer's perspective better than almost anyone. We will call her a power user, not just casual, but almost obsessive in her interest. She is her own focus group, alpha tester, and guinea pig. A smart creative is a fire hose of new ideas that are genuinely new. Her perspective is different from yours or ours. It's even occasionally different from her own perspective. For a smart creative can play the perspective chameleon when she needs to. She's curious creative. She's always questioning, never satisfied with the status quo. Seeing problems to solve everywhere and thinking that she is just the person to solve them. She can be overbearing. She is a risky creative. She's not afraid to fail because she believes that in failure there is usually something valuable she can salvage. Either that, or she's just so damn confident that she knows even the next event that she does fail, she can pick herself up and get it right the next time round. She is self-directed creative. She doesn't want to be told what to do and sometimes ignores direction if she doesn't agree with it. She takes action on her own initiative, which is considerable. She is open creative. She freely collaborates and judges ideas, analyses on their merits and not their provenance. If she was into needlepoint, she would sew a pillow that said, if I give you a penny, then you are a penny richer and I am a penny poorer. But if I give you an idea, then we will both have a new idea. And then she would figure out how to make the pillow fly around the room and shoot lasers. She is thorough creative. She is always on and can recite the details, not because she studies and memorises, but because she knows them. They are her details. She is communicative creative. She is funnily and expresses herself with flair and even charisma, either one-to-one or one-to-many. Not every smart creative has all these characteristics. In fact, very few of them do. But they must all possess business savvy, technical knowledge, creative energy, and a hands-on approach to getting things done. Those are the fundamentals. I'll stop there. Does it resonate? Do you like, when I read that, it kind of felt like it hit a button where it kind of said, yeah, we're different now, aren't we? We're a different kind of employee, we're a different kind of worker, and we need managing in a different kind of way. You can't just you can't just tell me what to do. I won't speak for the room, but maybe I can see some nods, so that's good. That actually we need this kind of, servant leadership as a buzzword, and we need to have managers and leaders that actually are embracing the type of people that we are. And I think Agile, I forgot to do my rolling thing, didn't I? But Agile, really helps. And I've seen teams, especially in creative teams, that are these very smart creatives, where actually traditional processes aren't working for them. So I think, just to get you thinking about, if you are project managers, if you are leaders, if you are working as part of a team, actually recognising that the characteristics of that team, the type of people that we are, and how it's best to manage us. So this is where the kind of practices come in, that actually we need these different practices to be able to manage people, to be able to manage the products and the businesses that we're running. So the approaches, the principles, the concepts, the methodology needs to be different. And we take this much more iterative approach. So I use a cake analogy to describe the difference between linear and agile development.
So if we think about linear working, I know I'm kind of, this is that preaching to the choir, isn't it? Because you're agile people. That actually, you know, traditionally we'd start with our goal, we'd scope it, we'd design it, we'd build it, we'd test it, we release it, job done. We thought, you know, we'd get through something in one foul swoop. And that was possible perhaps 20, 30 years ago, pre-millennium. But now that just isn't possible anymore. If we do that, we're kind of locking ourselves away in a cupboard for 6 months, 12 months. By the time we come out with our release, the world has moved on, yeah? We're out of date, we're too far behind. So we need to think about those layers as the cake and eat them in slices, yeah? And we still get to eat the whole cake, you know, that's one of the comments I quite often get, but I want to eat the whole cake. You can still eat the whole cake, but you eat in slices rather than gorging yourself all at once. And I think it's a kind of an analogy that works really well in helping non-technical people to understand the difference between traditional kind of linear project management and this more cyclical, iterative project management and product development. So these practices are really good for, you know, because products changing, software changing all the time, new versions coming out all the time, it impacts not just the software team. This impacts how we sell, it impacts how we market. And using marketing as an example, because I'm a bit, you know, with the Smart Creative Extract, we talk about the fact that, you know, we're wearing different hats, we're wearing many hats. So a lot of what I do is around sales and marketing. So I do the promotion for Agile on the Beach. So if you're reading the tweets, that's me. And actually the change, so when I was kind of 19, 20, I lived in a pub. And our marketing was you wrote something in chalk on a A-frame and you put it outside the door. And you might invest into a newspaper advert every now and then. You know, you think about how pubs advertise and market now. You know, you can walk into a Wetherspoon and order drinks on your app, can't you? You can get the Wetherspoon's drink and they'll serve you at the table. So marketing has changed. It's really kind of integrated with product, it's integrated with sales. So we find ourselves having to operate in this really real-time environment. We have to be responsive. And what the awesome thing is about technology is we've got all this data now. We've got this amazing amount of data that gives us this analytics to tell us how our customers are behaving, what people like, what people don't like. And we're getting that immediate feedback. So again, Agile project management is perfect for marketing because it allows us to have that responsiveness. And it allows us, technology as well, gives us lots more channels to pick from, and it allows us to automate a lot of the functions as well. So again, we see this synergy between marketing and development and software and all the different components of the business starting to impact. Does this make sense? Yeah, while I swig water. So, you know, in all different aspects of the organisation, we're starting to see the impact of technology. And technology is a real driver in this. Technology is really changing the face of how businesses operate. And I think one of the most powerful things that you can do as developers and as in the software department of your business is actually to use this writing on the wall to help. A lot of the teams that I go in and work with, I start working, say, with devs. And what happens is after, you know, sometimes a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months, is that I'll be walking out the building and the marketing manager will literally grab me and say, what have you done to dev? Because they are delivering, you know, we are working so much better with them suddenly, and we can walk in, we can see what they're doing. You know, can you come and do it to us too? Because they see that happiness, they see the dev team go from to yeah, and they want a piece of that. So actually, Agile, I find, generally has quite a good organic viral effect within an organisation if it's done well. I do appreciate there are organisations where Agile is done badly and it might not be the case, but I am very lucky in the sense that, you know, I have found that actually by implementing it in one part of the business, we seem to see this natural viral effect happening. So thinking about products, so skipping on, so practices, really important, but is anybody familiar with Porter's 5 forces? Yeah, I've got some nodding heads. That's cool. It's kind of more of a business, sales, marketing type concept or tool. Michael Porter come up with it in the late 70s, so nearly as old as me. And it identifies 5 forces that impact a business, so mostly around their competitiveness. And I feel that technology has blown most of these pretty much out of the water now. So you've got customer power. So customer power, their buying power, their loyalty, the loyalty of customers now is not like it was 20, 30 years ago. 20, 30 years ago, somebody would buy, say, a Ford car and they would always have a Ford car. That doesn't happen anymore. So the loyalty is gone. Supplier power, access to suppliers. So if we think about software as a service, if we think about software that's now a subscription-based software, anyone can access that software. Whereas previously, it would be those people that had the most money. An example is like solicitors used to invest into new software over about 10 years. So it would be the solicitor that had the latest software that had that power, that had that advantage. Now that's gone because we're all on subscription and it's all automatically renewing, it's in the cloud. So this is starting to disintegrate. Supply chains, I can buy access to hosting and storage and lease lines and all these sort of things, or even they're already there as a small startup SME. I don't have to be a massive corporate to access these things. So that's kind of blown out the water. Threat of substitution. How easy it now to copy and switch. It's easier, or let's say it's easier, a lot easier to copy products now. It's a lot easier for people to switch. So actually that threat of substitution is a lot, it's a lot harder to operate against that threat. Market entry, barriers to entry, we're all online, switching costs again. It's a lot easier for a new person, a new business to come into the market and blow it out the water. Oslim was talking, if you were in Oslim's talk, about how, disruptive technology has been in some of the more traditional markets. And competitive rivalry. We live in a global world now. We're not just competing with the guy down the road. Technology has been phenomenal for Cornwall. It has meant that we no longer are this little county stuck on the end of England that just, sells to the people that happen to come on holiday every year, or we transport our goods out of county, which is, and actually engineering as we know it in Cornwall. I mean, one of my things is 21st century revolution engineering in Cornwall is going to be software, because we've had, we were there with the mining engineering revolution. We were there with the steam engineering revolution. We were there with the railway engineering revolution. We are hoping, one of the things that Software Cornwall is trying to do is get Cornwall into the software engineering revolution. So this is fantastic for places like Cornwall. But then for other places that traditionally have been the hub of these businesses now see all these competitors and rivalry. So this has impacted products massively, in terms of how responsive we are, how quickly markets change, how quickly products change, how quickly customers change. And therefore Agile and its approaches are incredibly powerful. And, we can't hang around. This is this is a slide. I'm not going to go into detail on this one, but again, it's just that kind of, we can't take that time, and the cost of being wrong can be incredibly detrimental now within a business, within a team. This comes from a guy called Snedden, who is very into lean, and he's kind of always kind of ranting about how businesses need to, it's kind of about Agile, it's about lean, but it's more about business, and actually the waste of being wrong. And so again, taking an Agile approach can really help to mitigate some of these issues that we get from locking ourselves away in cupboards for 12 months to try and develop something. So the idea of minimum viable product and getting something out there early and delivering value So the way I describe minimum viable product is, you know, we've got all this value we want to deliver, and we've got a set amount of resources and actions that we want to carry out. And the minimum viable product, using like the Pareto principle, where's the 20% of the effort to put in to deliver the 80% value. So what 20% actions can we do with 20% of our resources to deliver 80% of the value? That's the unicorn, you know, that's the magic that we want to try and achieve. Might not always be possible, but that's what we're aspiring to. And that really helps us to get out there and get our products out there early, get that engagement, build that loyalty, build that trust, build that engagement with the customer, so that we are mitigating some of these issues that we're seeing from porters or from the Snedden, you know, the cost of being wrong. Actually, we can be much more agile, much more flexible. And just throw an example in terms of agile products. Actually, agile products can work really well outside of technology, and they can work in large corporate organisations as well. When I wrote the book, this was the first proposal that I sent to the editor. So my book was published by Pearson, one of the biggest publishers in the world, huge education, global publishers, very traditional, bit like how we used to develop software. So basically, when I started talking to Pearson and Eloise, who was the editor, I was like, okay, what's the process for writing the book? And she's like, right, okay, usually takes 12 to 18 months to get a book through the process. Basically, what you do, you write a proposal, we kind of throw it back at you a few times, you get it right, we then nail down that proposal, you get the green light, you then go away. So a bit like software, really. You know, right, so we've got the full specification, you then go away, lock yourself in a cupboard for 12 months, write your book, write your manuscript. You then bring it back to us on that deadline. We'll then tear it apart. We'll get you to completely rework it in a month, you know, and then we'll take that, we'll edit it, we'll page set it, we'll create a cover, and eventually we'll pop out the end as a book 18 months later. And I was just like, that book will never happen if we do that process. That's never going to work. Can you? Luckily, I was really lucky that Eloise was kind of really quite interested in the Agile approach. So I said, look, I think I can write this book in 16 weeks. I've sat down and worked it out, and I reckon 16 weeks. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. So I know the book is in my head. I just need to get it out, basically. I know the book's there. So she said, yeah, cool, but how are we going to do that? And I said, we'll take an Agile approach. I said, so I will send you my work in progress every 2 or 3 weeks, and if you can feed back to me and you can comment, and then I'll send it to you again in 2 or 3 weeks. And this way I'm getting really early feedback, because I cannot imagine writing 50,000 words and giving it to you and you asking me to rewrite it completely. I would rather give you 5,000 words, and she like de-Cornished me, you know, and things like that, and helped me to structure the words, helped me to structure how I was writing, which meant that then we got faster and faster to the point where we did have a completion within that 16 weeks. And she was blown away by that. And what was really brilliant was that through this process, they then ended up with an Agile board on their wall in their project team department, which was tracking the development of books. And then when I started talking to the marketing department about promoting the book, obviously they had a bit of a read of it and they were like, we've set up a board. So this is what I mean by that viral effect, is when you do it and you show that it works well and everybody's smiling and happy, people want a piece of that, you know. And this was, you know, she was asking me for a 12, 15 page proposal on my book, and I was like, yeah, right, whatever, I'll just take the titles, post-it note it out, and we'll talk through the post-it note. So these are all the elements. This was my initial contents that I had for the book. Only about half of these post-it notes went into the book, because I got to 40,000 words and realised I still had 120,000 words on my board, you know. So again, I'm minimum viable product, the book. I was like, okay, what's the 20% of all this stuff that actually will go into the book to produce those 50,000 words? You know, she was very much, you can write a second book, and I was like, oh gosh, of course, version 2.0, you know, so this is an option down the line. So, you know, it worked really well. And actually there was a bit of a buzz that went round Pearson, apparently I was told by Eloise, about minimum viable product, and there was this kind of buzz thing that was going, what's the minimum viable product? which I found really exciting for such a huge, traditional, very linear organisation. But I think it does prove beautifully that, you can put Agile within an element of a business and it work effectively. You don't have to make the whole organisation Agile overnight. I talk a lot about taking an Agile approach to adopting Agile. So I'm like, take a little bit of Agile that you think will work for you, try that, then add a bit more, then add a bit more, take this Agile approach. Whereas what I do see a lot when I'm talking to especially larger businesses is they seem to want to have this big bang approach, and actually that's not the Agile way. That kind of goes against, and also they get very rigid, and I'm like, Agile, rigid, they're two different things. So be Agile with your Agile approach as well. And the other example I wanted to share was that we're doing this in education as well in Cornwall. So we wanted, what we had in Cornwall about 4 or 5 years ago is we had a broken pipeline. Basically, we had no kids coming through from the schools into computer science. The degrees were non-existent, and even when they were coming out with the wrong skills. So we've kind of taken an Agile approach to trying to, I suppose, disrupt the education system in Cornwall really when it comes to computer science. But through this idea of test-driven development, going out and talking to the kids, we developed what we call our Mission to Mars. So this is Bert, this is one of our Mission to Mars robots, which one of our volunteers built. And the kids come in for a week. And we tried loads of different things, like we went to careers fairs and we tried running little jams and little events, and we realised that the teachers haven't got a clue how to teach computer science. It's all completely new to them. You've got like a history teacher trying to teach computer science. They've not got the support. So we were trying to look at ways that we could build stuff that teachers could use, but we could also deliver. We ran this, and basically they're little robots, and they teach them to be autonomous. So they learn to code in C, they learn to take an Agile approach, and they do it on a Raspberry Pi, they upload it to the robot, and then like this one's follow the light. So they program the robot to autonomously follow the light, or to avoid obstacles and things. It's absolutely awesome, and we see these kids engage. And now we started this just under 2 years ago. We're now just launching £500,000 to £250,000 projects that are EU funded and lottery funded to scale this, because it's working phenomenally. This is our minimum viable product. This is proving that this gets kids into computer science and onto that pathway. We've also got like Falmouth University, who 5 years ago told me, darling, we're a BA university. We will never have a Bachelor of Science at Falmouth. They've now got a couple, they're doing games design, games development. It's absolutely phenomenal to see that shift in culture and mindset that happens when you do things at a really grassroots level, that actually you prove things, you validate things to people, and that helps them to join in. So kind of this idea that we're moving, we're developing these minimum viable products, we're scaling, and we're moving in these kind of sprints to operate this continuous delivery and improvement. And the impact of that, again, on business is huge, because we're going from, Henry Ford's first car, like their iteration was like 16 years or something like that, between models. So, considering now, we've got a talk at Agile on the Beach this year, which is like 15 times a day. So the rate of change in terms of continuous delivery and continuous improvement is really impacting on business models as well. And actually, there's also a flip side to this. So this is a boat that this is a brilliant example of take an Agile approach to adopting Agile. These guys took the concepts of continuous improvement. They took the concepts of my retrospective boat game, and they came up with their own boat. And what was happening here was that the business had actually, the teams within the business had almost kind of come into this continuous improvement, continuous delivery. So they're a toy manufacturer, and they were manufacturing around, designing and producing around 250 toys a year. Huge, they've grown phenomenally over a couple of years. And their systems had kind of gone out of sync. So what the teams were doing and what the system was saying were two completely different things. So the directors and the managers within the business were like, you're just like constantly failing, guys. You know, this system was basically red all over. You know, it was like you are in this state of perpetual failure. Morale was going down and down and down. But actually they were producing toys, you know, they were getting them out the door. So there was this argument, you know, so the system said, we release our toys in 2 batches every year. One batch goes out between April 20th and May the 10th. And the teams were saying that is not true. That is not how it happens. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. No, you know, you get this kind of argument. So we're like, right, let's visualize it. So what happened is every toy gets like a magnetic note with elements on it, and it tracks through the building. So we actually started doing Agile with the design and development team, the research and development team, and they started their board. And it kind of went viral because once they got through that stage and it kind of went into like design were like, oh, well, we can have a board all the way through to this is shipping the toys. So this is what happened. They tracked when these toys were being shipped. And what you can see is only 16% of them were going out on the dates that the system said. The rest of them were actually going out over the course of time, and then we kind of get to October, so these are empty, it's a bit of a work in progress. These are empty, and then the October one sits in. So what this showed almost immediately was that actually the team were almost already working continuous development, continuous delivery, but the system hadn't kept up. So actually we used the visualization to help to scope out the new system, to build a new system that did fit the purposes. And what it also helped them to do was scale back, so they kind of Paretoed their products. So they identified the 20% of their products that was really good for them. And you'll notice that there's a few toys that went down in the sea, so 16% of the toys. This had a really negative effect. You know, you've got, you know, this is about 80 people in this business. So you've got maybe like 60 people that have been working on these toys over the last year, and Dispatch have just thrown them in the sea. You know, if you'd written a bit of software and I just kind of went, yeah, on it, how would that make you feel? So what we did was we built a port and a warehouse for these toys, because actually it was because they hadn't been refined enough to be dispatched. I haven't got the slide in this set today, but actually we tracked the happiness metrics of this team. They were going down at a serious rate of knots, and they went straight back up again when we introduced Agile. So over the course of about 18 months, they went from like, they were down to about 55% happiness. They went back up to like 85% happiness. I do sometimes get heckle from the room that says, oh, well, happiness doesn't necessarily equal success. I think a happy team is a productive and a quality and a good team. But to validate that a little bit more, they used to aim for 10,000 units for each toy. They now have 2 toys that are 1 million plus units. Yeah. So if you're not happy with a happiness metric, hopefully that one's, you know, to go from 10,000 units to 1 million is amazing in terms of validating. And this was all about getting them to think and act in an agile way, and get the directors and the managers talking to the people on the front line and actually getting that conversation going, writing on the wall. So last couple of slides, I'm going to nearly be on time. That's really good for a new talk. So when we think about Agile, the other thing that I'm very aware of in a business is that we tend to look, and what a lot of businesses get caught up in is this run. You know, firefighting, the day-to-day, you know, we do it all in, I do it in my day job as well, you know, you get caught up in the day-to-day stuff in your run. And what I think Agile is really good at is helping to bring this grow balance, helping to bring this change balance. So while we do want, you know, to run the business, the existing stuff, we want continuous delivery, we want to optimize flow, take out cost, we need to standardize things to make them optimal, we need to have some control of change, command and control, a little bit of that, a little bit of hierarchy, you know, and we need to pin down contracts ultimately. But actually, we need to balance that with change. We need to balance that with the new, with continuous improvement, with disruptive innovation. You know, Kodak with Oslam's talk and, you know, Kodak being blown out of the water from digital technology. We need to look for this disruptive innovation, these 5 forces that are now so easy to overcome. We want to add value, innovate, manage change. We want to build collaborative networks. And I think Agile is really great at helping to bring that balance. So helping a business not only, you know, most of the businesses I go to, they're pretty good at this. This is good. You know, they're good at running, they're good at repeating stuff and optimizing it. What they're not necessarily as good at is innovating and, you know, having those disruptive innovating, doing that change, managing that change. I talk about, you know, not controlling change, but managing change, embracing the change, and actually allowing that to be a good part of that business and bringing that balance so that we've actually got that right balance ratio. So for some businesses, it's 80% run, 20% change. For others, it's 70-30. It depends on the business. Again, I'm a massive believer that every team is unique, every business is unique. You know, we need to manage them in a unique way, therefore. Yes, we can have some standards, but we do need to have that flexibility too. I assume you're all familiar with the technology adoption life cycle. So this slide is a bit of a call to action from me to you. You know, I think most of you in here are development, and just kind of, if we think about, you know, maybe not this as the mobile phone as this one's showing, but if we think about this Agile adoption, this is a very new slide, so apologies for the slight rough and readiness of it. But when I look at this and I think about, you know, where are we as developers, as software engineers on this curve? If this is Agile curve, you know, actually, innovators, early adopters, you know, we're way past that, aren't we? You know, we're pretty much kind of, I think we're across the chasm in terms of the software world. We're probably past the early majority. So I'd actually put developers kind of maybe towards this late majority now. Agreement in the room or disagreement? I'm really interested in this. So we're well ahead of the game when it comes to Agile. But our peers in our business, and I've just picked a couple, there are lots that we could put on this. So I think, you know, startups, particularly tech startups, they're very much, you know, ahead of the game as well. I think they're really maybe a bit behind the development movement, but still way up there in terms of their business models and perhaps also the reason I've put the line in is because not all startups are there. Some of them are still on this journey. And marketing was the other one that I wanted to put up there because I think actually marketing, go on.
I'm on both startups and developer, and I think that's the mistakes about startups is you have many kind of startups. You have the 200-person startup and you have the 2 guys started in the garage.
Yeah.
They're probably between developers and marketing along the line.
Yeah. And I think you can say the same for developers. There are some development teams that are probably, you know, down here. And actually there are some development teams that are still back here. So, you know, rather than kind of using this as putting them in a box, this is why I kind of put the lines in, because it's that kind of where are we on that journey. And actually, you know, this is all, you know, there's a next wave coming along and there's a next wave. So, you know, you've got various versions of Agile. So it's a very kind of simplistic view, I think, of where we are. But trying to make the point, I think, hopefully it will make the point. I'd really appreciate feedback on that. And then we've kind of got other areas of the business that are perhaps, you know, they're very much kind of, they're the guys, they're the, you know, like I said about the marketing guy. So I've just, in that same organisation, I've just had the finance person come up to me and gone, you know, the stuff that you're doing with dev and marketing is awesome. Can you come and do it in finance? You know, so we're starting to see the finance, the operations. I thought about trying to put management on here, but I was like, where do you put that? You know, where do you put directors? So we're all on this journey, and I think my point, my call to action really is that, you know, think about think about the manifesto, think about that collaboration, think about interactions, think about the people, and actually, you know, we are leading the way. So let's help let's help the early startups, let's help the marketing, the HR department, the operations department, the finance department, to understand more about not just doing Agile, but what it means to be Agile. Because actually in technology, we are impacting these guys on a huge scale. I've seen it firsthand. You know, I experience it myself with the work that I do. And actually having you guys support is absolutely brilliant. Having that technology. And I think it's amazing because tech teams and that department has now become, I think, like the core of a business. We've moved from being that outskirts weird group of people that kind of operate on the outskirts of the business, throwing a website or this thing in, to actually being right in the heart of the business. And so we're now in a really important place, and we can make and break businesses, we can make and break teams. So I think it's a really important thing that we embrace that. So that's my kind of call to action is, you know, next time, you know, you find that your marketing team are really stressed out, you know, give them a break, sit down with them, do some empathy mapping, do some Agile boards with them, help them to understand how to navigate this massive changing world that we live in now. So I've probably just kind of said that bit, so I'll just flip through those. But, you know, think about the type of people that we're working with. Think about those how those practices can be, you know, used in other areas of the business. Think about the impact that this has on the products and the marketing teams and the sales people within your organisations, that you are changing. You know, we're moving the goalposts on 15 times a day. We're moving the goalposts now as dev teams, and how that impacts on the whole business. And hopefully, that's my talk. So, you know, Agile is moving beyond the code. It has moved beyond the code. I think we are, you know, it's the after effect now that we need to embrace, that we need to help our fellow peers within our organisations and our partner organisations, those our customers, and also in life too. I've a lovely lady who messaged me who I did some Agile training with, saying that she's used the Agile board to help her daughter revise for her GCSEs the last few months. That was magic to me. That really, you know, I was like, wow, that's brilliant. She was like, you need to make an Agile revision pack. So it's spreading like wildfire, and we are leading that. And it's our place to kind of be positive about that, be optimistic and helpful. So, beyond the code. Oh, thank you. What do you think? Thumbs up or? Oh. Hopefully gets you thinking. It's not one of those practical, here's a tool to use. You know, I appreciate that it's not that. But
Conference, the theme that seems to be coming out is how Agile is actually bursting out of just your usual IT teams.
Yeah.
And there was another talk by Dean that I heard that he was talking about how Agile is just, you know, other people just starting Agile methodology or just beyond code.
Yeah, I've got like museums I'm working with finance teams, I'm working with fashion designers, I work with a brewery to help them develop a new beer in an agile way. You know, it's brilliant the way that it's actually so highly adaptable in different areas. I get really excited about it, you know, and I'm really excited about this conference as well, because it kind of reminds me of Agile on the Beach 7 years ago. 7 years ago we started, we had 60, 70 people, there was a real buzz, it was all about, you know, Agile and the future and what goes forward. These are the tracks of the conference actually, so this is the kind of structure of my thing, is that we try and be a holistic conference. But I'm really excited about this conference because I can see, I was talking to one of the girls earlier and I was like, I just hope that in 5 years time I'm back here going, look, we're like 300 people and isn't it amazing? And it's all about, you know, the future of Agile. So
to go also in the beyond the code, there are a lot of movements, like in Agile, you had a lot of the impact of Agile is not only the way you work, but it creates a subset of ecosystem, community environment.
Yeah.
And like if you think of marketing, you have growth hacking. Growth hacking, it's
yeah.
that's using Agile in the marketing way.
Yeah, I'm doing a marketing hackathon workshop in a couple of weeks' time. It's another new workshop. I don't know why I'm throwing all these new workshops and seminars into my head, but I'm really excited to do that. It's kind of minimum viable product marketing and stuff, so it's really good. It's, yeah, we're just going to wing it. It's like I've got the idea in my head. We're going to test it out, try it, see how it works. It's kind of what I do in Agile on the Beach, but I'm going to try and share it. And it's harder. It's easier to do something than it is to share it with somebody else. So it's going to be interesting. But connect with me on LinkedIn. You know, keep in touch. Let me know how you're getting on. You know, quick plug for the book as well. Buy somebody non-technical in your business the book. I've had so much really good feedback about it in terms of people doing that and saying, you know, this Agile thing, you know, have a look at this because, you know, this will give you some of the basic principles and some of the basic tools and thinking behind Agile in a way that isn't about software, isn't about technology.